Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Noxcast, an Equinox news recap podcast. I'm your host, Charlotte King. I'm the managing executive editor of the Equinox.
And I'm Nathan Hope. I'm the administrative executive editor of the Equinox. And this week we are joined by one of our senior photographers, Emily Swift.
Hello, I am Emily Swift. I am one of the senior photographers for the Equinox.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
To start off, I'd love to have you just talk a little bit about what it means to be a senior photographer, and also, at this point, you've been with us for some time now, so just sort of your overall experience at the paper.
Yeah, so I kind of described senior photographer as kind of like being the staff photographer, but cooler. You get to actually kind of like contribute to the e-board stuff. And it's kind of also like another great excuse to actually, stay around at the college for events as someone who does live a half hour away as a commuter student. I've been a staff photographer for pretty much the last 3 years, and I feel like this year I just decided, you know what, screw it, I'm going to be a senior photographer, so I might as well. I've been here longer than most staff photographers do in one semester, so...
Yeah, it's true. I do think it was kind of a situation of oh yeah, about time that we sort of brought you in to just have that e-board input and be a little more involved. But no, it's been great to have you for the editorial discussions and just to have as we've been mentioning, we're a little shorter on photographers than normal recently, and so. It's definitely helpful to just have a strong photo team on the board who can kind of pick that up and make sure that we've got a lot of high quality images. So that's awesome. I don't know if we had any other talk we wanted to do about senior photographer or senior staff stuff.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you in general if you wanted to talk a little bit about sort of the type of photo assignments you take and sort of what you try to pursue in your photography with the Equinox.
Yeah. Usually I feel like the kind of events I like to take photos of, usually it might be something simple like a concert, but I also really like taking pictures that I think are meaningful to the college in some way, like any kind of advocating related stuff, like the Israel-Palestine stuff from the last few months, and I believe some of the LGBTQ events, like this drag show that I participated one year, and the 2 different pride events. I think one of them was supposed to be a parade, but it was just kind of a lot of people just enjoying their time out on the student center lawn. And of course, unfortunately, due to the art show stuff, I did kind of have to take a bit of a backseat and just take really simple stuff, like taking a picture of a parking lot where a hit and run happened, or recently I kind of did just another concert with the most Italian sounding man ever, and the pictures of the church for, I believe, the recent passing of the Pope.
Yeah, definitely. Emily, like any senior art student, has been busy for the past several weeks, but that's because of the art and design show, which we published an article about in this paper. Orion went and got some coverage, but I wanted to also just have you talk a little bit about the show and the lead up to that and what that experience has been like, and also maybe the aftermath of getting to relax a tiny bit.
All right, so this story technically starts before the semester even began. Every year, every art student or graphic design student is given an email about how they should prepare their portfolios and present them for if they want to do a BFA. Initially, I was an art and design student, but I decided to just focus more on my graphic design because that's kind of what I was more into and felt like it had more career opportunities for the time. And I just prepared a really simple portfolio and presented it with a good handful of the professors. And I somehow managed to get it in, even though it felt like I was running an entire marathon after. And so then I signed into the portfolio class, and pretty much it was kind of a mix between figuring out a sort of capstone project. Mine was called Fusty Hollow, which was kind of a fictional toy line, which was also an excuse for me to learn Blender and 3D printing, as well as package design and making a little identity for these silly little mushroom characters. It was kind of Warhammer 40K meets Grimm's fairy tales type stuff. And then after we like prepare other things like the business cards, resume, some little takeaway stuff. I ordered stickers. I wanted to do some like 3D printed stuff, but I didn't have the time, and the models just were not working on any of the printers that either at the college or this like friend of my mom's who was helping out at the time. And we also had to like, put a book together, and I initially wanted the book's paper to be bigger, but I ordered the wrong type, so I kind of had to make do with what I had. And we we ironed out all the little tablecloths ourselves. We like printed out these massive little backdrops. The art students are kind of lucky that they have like people, like actually trusted people to like screw their stuff to the walls, but we had to do everything ourselves basically. And I kind of just sat down, just showed everyone my stuff, and just had a pretty good time. I'm really happy that the show is finally over.
That's awesome. And congrats for,
Thank you.
pulling through and getting to just show off your stuff. That's super awesome. I covered the art and design show last year, and I remember just how cool of an experience it was to walk around and see like the sheer range of what people had worked on and just all the care that gets poured into that. I always like to ask, what was it like for you to sort of be able to see what, other people at the show were presenting that they had been working on?
Oh, yeah. So I think for like, the best part of like graphic design portfolio is that you actually kind of get connected with like the other people in your classroom that you haven't before, especially since, as mentioned before, I commute. I do not live on campus. I live a half hour away. So I don't really quite have like the time to sort of get around and like meet people as often as I feel like I would if I did stay over. And it was just really satisfying just seeing other people's like design skills improve, and just also occasionally like bumping elbows with like the art students. There were like some really beautiful artwork this year. I can't remember. I think the artist's name is Bombi. He made some like really beautiful like paintings where like the way he draws skin was just beautiful.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, congrats to all the senior artists on campus for, pulling through and hopefully, going out in the world and continuing to create some amazing stuff. I don't know if we had any other discussion we wanted to.
Yeah, I love when we can like bring people onto like our board that are from like different areas of sort of study rather than just journalism. I think that's something that I like incorporate into a lot of my pitches toward like the Equinox whenever we're like doing Admitted Students Day in particular. Like students are coming in, they are going around the MAC, and there's a lot of different, disciplines in the MAC, but I think art is like such a critical part of what we do. But like, just having that eye for like visuals and stuff. And I know you contributed a graphic once to the paper, which was really cool. And yeah, I'm just glad to be able to have that like additional perspective of not just like covering what, other people are doing, but also having someone like from our side who like, also participate. It's cool to sort of see both sides of that. And I think like the art and design show is definitely one of my favorite events that I get to see and like read. I didn't get to go to the one this year, unfortunately, but I always love the events where people are just like showing off the things that they've created, and I think it's a great thing.
Thanks. Yeah, I admit I kind of had like a bit of a sort of why not feeling to like participating in portfolio too, because I've seen all these people like with making all these like really beautiful books with like really amazing displays. And like everyone, I've had a previous like senior like talk about like how it's not an easy class to do, and I agree. I feel like it's not easy for anyone who does not really have the grit or like willingness to take criticism super well. So like for me, I guess it might have been easier than the average student because I tried to have a consistent bedtime, but yeah, it's like something I would recommend, but then I would like remember, oh yeah, there's this thing you have to do, so just
Yeah, definitely the grit and the bedtime makes all the difference, because yeah, I have seen how grueling that can be. But again, that's awesome, and I'm so glad to, like Nate said, just have somebody who was like on the other side of that to be able to kind of get the inside look into that experience. And I think from there we can go ahead and get into our recap proper. Our top story from news this week is from our staff writer Ashling, shout out. And it's kind of a little rundown on what to do when wildlife comes and visits us on campus, as is known to sometimes happen, including recently. I know you've all seen the posts, but yeah, I don't know, just kind of like letting people know, keep your cool. Don't try to run because most animals are going to be faster than you. If there's a bear, you are not going to win that race. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's just like a helpful piece to be able to make people feel a little more secure in their knowledge of the topic, because we do live in kind of a semi-rural area, and it's the kind of thing where I'd hate to have anybody walking around with like undue anxiety about the idea of like, well, what would I do if I came face to face with an animal that's 4 times my size and hungry, or protecting its babies or whatever it may be. So just being able to put that out there and say like, well, here's what you can do. It's not a guarantee that everything will be, peaches from there, but at least having that base of knowledge to go off of, I think, is helpful.
Yeah. There's like a couple stories that we've done about wildlife on campus, but I do think like having the additional angle of like what a student should do is a helpful one, because I do think it's what people wonder sometimes. But I do like to think that, students are generally like respectful and sort of know the deal in terms of like making sure that you're not disturbing their peace, and they're not going to hurt you if you're not hurting them. So but yeah, this kind of came about as a result of like the whole moose spotting on campus, which I know you, Emily, sent a thing in like the group chat about.
Yeah, it's because my mom like posted about it on Facebook, and there's like an inside joke that I always call turkeys over but never mooses, which she wants. But I'm a bit afraid of mooses ever since I read Hatchet in grade school, so
Yeah, I wouldn't. They're cool and they're beautiful, but I would not want to find myself face to face with a moose.
Yep, especially if they have babies with them.
Yeah, those antlers can. I don't want to know what they can do. Top story from region and state this week is in keeping with a topic that we have definitely visited a few times now on Noxcast, which is immigration enforcement and the rise of that, being something we're seeing a lot of, particularly as we've talked about it with students. But it's come out that there's currently an ongoing lawsuit in several states, including New Hampshire, that's being sort of spearheaded by the American Civil Liberties Union to sue immigration enforcement and say, you can't target people like this. It's not right, and the protection of our students is above all else in terms of priorities. I think the article mentioned that there have been at least like 3 instances in New Hampshire that are listed in the suit as being examples of people being unfairly targeted, and it's just it never gets easier to hear about it or to talk about it. But I hope that the suit can do some good. I don't know where it will go. It'll be definitely something to follow in terms of the developments there. But I'm always hoping that somebody can step in and just put a little bit of sense out there in terms of saying, this isn't how we treat our people. It's not right.
Yeah, during like the last couple of our editorials about some of like the targeted immigration enforcement things that have taken place, part of what we discussed was like we always try to hit on like what is a potential solution, what could be done, and I think like something that's been floated like during those discussions is like legal action. I mean, it's like, equal branches of government is how things are supposed to be. And so I think, the ACLU is well within their right in doing sort of what, the largest extent of what you can do to fight back against these measures, which is to argue, the unconstitutionality of them and sort of fight out that battle in the court of law is the best way to go about it. And I imagine you might see some success in maybe like lower courts, and there might be like individual relief first for like those who are mentioned by name in the lawsuit. But obviously, like the end goal is to get relief for everybody involved. And so I would be curious to see. I'll definitely be following the story to see where it goes. But yeah.
Emily, did you want to add anything to this one?
Yeah. I guess to kind of just call out the people who only read like our Constitution and Bill of Rights up to the Second Amendment, I think it should be noted that like literally part of the grievances listed in the Declaration of Independence were people being shipped off away for like random crimes and like people like not being given due process. Like there's so many like things that should be like, working against this, but it's like really foolish that people would believe that this is the right thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. I think with the way in which the ACLU is approaching this through the court system, like I agree that there's definitely plenty of prior just precedent to look at and say, this isn't. I just keep saying this isn't right, and I realize that that's not like very in-depth commentary, but like
unlawful.
That's yeah. When you get down to the root of it, like this is standing up for what should be the status quo, the law, saying that you can't do that, you can't operate this way, and so yeah, I don't know. I will be interested to see how it plays out. Our top story from Student Life this week is our Greek Week coverage, annual tradition, and Alpha Sig and DIII took home the win once again. So congrats to everybody in both those groups for keeping the streak going. This one's like, this is one of the big ones each year to just like get some really cool, fun coverage, good photos, do something a little special with the layout. And so, I think with any of these, you get a lot of the big events towards the end of the year. And so, we're always busy in the newsroom, but that's the kind of thing that I think is always like people are stressed out. Finals are just about here, and it's nice to have events where it's like, all right, let's break, let's have some fun. It's time to just like put all of that aside and focus on an annual tradition that's just about like some friendly competition, fostering a community with everybody who's in Greek life. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like this one came out really nicely.
Yeah, I have to like definitely give some props because like we had like a somewhat difficult time organizing like an event for like one day, and then this is like a week-long program of several different events all like happening day by day, and it's like I can't imagine putting that on. And like you look at the article and some of the quotes where like they've been working on it since like the previous summer. Like it's a lot of work and a lot goes into that, and picking out like the theme and like how you want things to play out, and sort of seeing that come to fruition must have been like quite satisfying. And yeah, also props to like, we typically always do like a double byline on this because it's just so much for like one person shouldn't have to cover the whole thing. So Orion for going to some of the events and talking to some folks, but then also Student Life editor-elect Justin also helping out and sort of getting that foray into the world of student life, which Greek life plays a massive part in. But yeah, it's a great event for visuals as well, and we always like to have some fun with that.
Yeah, like my friend is very involved with the Greek life, and it really seems like they're almost like a big like family in there. You know, there's a reason they call each other like sister, brother, and all that other stuff. It's not like something I've ever got a chance to participate in, but it seems like to have like a lot of benefits for like people who like, you know, want to get in. And
Yeah, definitely. I think the just overall, community and feeling of fostering that sort of student experience of being able to like connect with people, especially on a small campus like this, being able to find like a group of people who are interested in just like getting together and having some fun. Like, I don't know. It's nice. And I liked seeing all the quotes that some folks had about like how, it is a competition and people, are kind of like in it to win it, but also it's all very just like, it's all friendly sparring and just about sort of the opportunity to get a little rowdy before the year's end. All right. Our editorial for this week is actually kind of following up on something from news that we talked about last week on Noxcast, and that is the upcoming changes to meal plans starting this coming school year. So we brought it to the e-board for discussion, and I think everybody was pretty united in the fact that this seems ill-advised. I understand where I understand that Chartwell's, will want to advertise their product sufficiently, all aspects of their product sufficiently. But at the same time, I think like in terms of the way that this is being offered to students, like these huge cuts to meal plan dollars are, I'm anticipating some real fallout. I'm anticipating maybe disaster because we've all seen it. We've all been in the student center in between classes or like first thing in the morning when they open. And it's a rush. It's a huge rush of people. And so I get why, dining would feel like they need to have a response to that because Lloyd's isn't that big in the grand scheme of things. None of these like sort of more grab and go type spaces like Lloyd's or Hoot and Scoot, Sizzler. None of them are really designed for that like huge capacity of people. But I don't think that the way to go about it is to, push on the students and say, okay, now, halfway through the semester, you won't be able to go to Lloyd's unless you spend your own money, which I don't think I need to really tell anybody that college students do not have the money to go and spend out of their own wallets for Lloyd's. It's not going to happen. I feel like, we're going to go from 100 to 0 here, where it's like at the start of the semester, everybody is still going to be just flooding Lloyd's, using what limited meal plan dollars they have, and then we're going to go to 0. Nobody's going to be there, and probably people are just going to look for off-campus food options if they don't like the DC. So I don't know. I just worry about this, and I think that there are better ways to incentivize people to eat at the dining commons that aren't so coercive.
Yeah. One thing that I really tried to hit on in terms of like a solution that I think would be probably more feasible or Chartwell's would be more willing to pursue is if inflation is, truly the driving factor behind this, and I don't doubt that it is a factor, then I think that there should be they should keep on the existing plans with the swipes and the meal plan dollars, but maybe raise the prices of those if they have to coordinate with that. But then these new plans, you can have those be the cheaper option and see where students' interests lie and then give them more of a choice in that, because I feel like the reconfiguration here isn't really in the interest of what I've heard from a lot of students. I'm a commuter student, so I don't, experience a lot of like on-campus dining, but I like have enough where I like can tell the difference in opinion, and I have my own differences of opinion as someone who's, mean, at Zorn and at Lloyd's. I mean, I prefer Lloyd's, but like there should be some sort of choice in order here because I feel like it was just there's not enough input. And I know there's like those recent focus groups, and I wonder if anything came up as a topic of discussion in regard to meal plans at all, or what could be done, because I feel like you might have been able to glean more of sort of where that interest lies if there had been maybe some more listening to that. So I'm hopeful that maybe they'll take a look at our editorial and hear what students are saying and maybe reconsider a little bit how they're going about this.
Yeah, I think this like discussion has also kind of made me think like, Lloyd's and Hoot and Scoot unfortunately aren't like designed for higher capacities, and like I really do feel bad for like, the cashiers also because they have to deal with like all these long lines, and they do both like lean older. And I really wish there could also be some like ways to sort of help, like, by having more like cashiers and like sort of supplies to help make like transactions easier. I already feel like, some of the more healthier options the campus offers does lean a little bit more pricey. And, with like how the dining commons like kind of shift their prices depending on the time of day, it really does just feel like there isn't really any like sufficient way to like eat well here, and without just resorting to like a lot of like more junky options or just eating off campus, which is going to eat at your bank account at some point because, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. And one of the other points that we hit on related to sort of the capacity that these spaces have to serving such, high quantities of people is another thing that dining can look at doing is incentivizing students to want to work at a space like the dining commons, And I think that would do a lot both for the staffing of the DC, obviously, but also just on a social level, I kind of feel like having more students working at the DC would kind of make it a more inviting experience. And that's not to say anything, of the staff that they have working there now, who are all lovely. But I wonder what, and maybe this would be something to do, further focus group work about or whatever it may be. But I just wonder, like, what kind of response there would be if, the DC was a more appealing place for students to work. Would it also become a more appealing place for students to eat?
Yeah, I feel like it depends on like, because, I do feel like food service does require a lot of cleanliness and like being able to work together. And, I'm kind of speaking from experience as someone that works in like a food service where there is sometimes like tensions in between working, and it's not good.
Yeah, I think that's I didn't want to harp on this point during the discussion or in the editorial, just because we've kind of, the news cycle has happened. We don't know exactly where things are at right now, but, there was the instance prior that we had reported on where the DC's health inspection was in a much more concerning place than the inspections of the other areas on campus. And again, that's just the kind of thing where it doesn't make people want to go there. And so, I definitely, we said then, and I'll say again now, I definitely believe that there is a path upwards for the dining commons to improve and become more inviting. But just as it stands with the way that things have been going for the past however long now, that's just not where students are at. And I think that there needs to be an acknowledgement of that reality that students just don't want to eat there before we can kind of proceed to the next step of saying, how can we fix that? We can't kind of we can't take the shortcut of just saying, well, let's just make them eat there, because they won't, or if they do, they'll, there will be unrest. Top story, another big one. Again, we're really hitting the crux now of all the big events at the end of the year. Evening of Dance, the 51st Evening of Dance, and another just really awesome layout with some cool cutout stuff and everything. We did the preview last week in A&E as well, but this is the big one. But so, yeah, I don't know, just so cool all the time to see the different theming and choreography and just types of movement that they use to make it really special and really distinct. And so being able to highlight that is always a joy.
Yeah. Props to Haley for coming up with sort of the design idea here with the layout. I think I encourage everyone to grab a paper and
Absolutely.
look at it. It's amazing.
Should grab one every day.
It's true.
It's true. But yeah, it's a really cool event. It's another one of the ones that happens in the flurry of events at the end of the year, but always interesting to see what they come up with in terms of the theming, like you said. And, although I wasn't able to go, again, it's an instance where it's just like appreciating the work that like people will put into their craft. There's just so much that goes into it, and like months of rehearsals and prepping and choreographing. It's no easy task. So yeah.
Wasn't it big enough to have literally multiple evenings of dance?
It's true. Yeah. It's about 4 evenings of dance.
Nice.
But yeah, no, really cool stuff and major shout outs to Haley. I thought the cutout came out amazing, and I loved just the colors of it all. We also threw the masthead on the front page, so even if you just walk by, you'll see it. But yeah, super exciting, and I don't know. As former A&E editor, I love seeing the big events that we coordinated last year come back and being able to say, how can we do another fresh take on this. And then that brings us to sports. So this was our coverage of D3 week, basically just appreciating our athletes. Again, I feel like as we approach the end of the semester, things can get a little tense, a little tough, but it's nice to see just everybody kind of take a moment to say, we got some amazing athletes at this school. We really do. And so shout out to all of them. And, I did think it was kind of amusing, one detail, the range of responses to the YD3 question of, some people being like, well, that's what I could afford. And then others saying, because we love it. And so, both true. I mean, it's a more affordable option, but also the community there is clearly so just like strong and team oriented. And so, yeah, I don't know what else to say about that one besides just congrats to everybody and seems like a great time.
Yeah, I think like D3 week and sort of the question of why D3 is pretty analogous to just why the question of like a small state college like Keene State in general. I mean, like, it is the cheaper option. It is, not as prestigious and big as other schools, but also there's benefits of like, your professors more closely. And I guess like in terms of like a team environment, you really get to know your teammates very closely. You get to talk to your coach and assistant coaches and all the athletic trainers and everything. It's like, an experience that is more personal, I think, and you kind of get to be more of like highlighted and like more recognized, I think, especially with like all these stories that our sports editor Jakob has been doing with like the best in the nest and LECs of the week. You get like weekly honors for, these athletes did a really good job. And I think like other schools, you're harder pressed to find, such consistent recognition of work. And we've done all these stories about all these athletes breaking records and stuff. It's like there's so much opportunity to really come into your own at like a school like this, even though it is, people say, oh, it's just D3. And that's like, well, the athletes who are here sort of say, I'm fine with that. I like being able to have that experience and sort of more personalized.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't have like a ton else to add to this one besides, definitely like Nate said, the idea that, some people might say like it's just D3, but you look at it and it's like, well, it's not just anything. It is what it is, and it does that well. And so there's nothing to be ashamed of there. There's plenty of pride to go around for our athletes. So yeah, I don't know. I think that kind of does it for that one and for our news recap for this week. We only have 2 more papers this academic year, which means we only have 2 more news recaps for you, which is kind of sad. I'll miss it when we're on break over the summer. But
Who are we gonna trust with Noxcast now?
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. More to come.
Stay tuned.
But yeah, so thank you for listening to this recap, and we hope to have you tune in for the next one. As always, I'd like to extend very special thanks to the composer of the music for Noxcast, our very own Equinox alum, Zach Keenan, as well as the designer of the graphic for Noxcast, our very own art director, Elijah Fisher, and of course, the editor of Noxcast, our very own multimedia director, Jakob Hall. Until next time, I've been Charlotte King.
I've been Nathan Hope, and thank you again to Emily for joining us.
Thank you guys for letting me come in.